Santa Sangre is a film that came out in 1989 that's written and directed by Alejandro Jodorowsky. So Santa Sangre is actually this month's subscriber poll winner, and clearly it's a film that I've already seen before and I am deeply in love with. But it's a film that I haven't seen in quite some time. I'd say it's been at least 4 years since I've revisited this film, and I remember when Severin re-released a new restoration for Santa Sangre, I pretty much bought it immediately and got the bundle pack, obviously got the shirt, got the Blu-ray, and ever since that package came in, I've been dying to rewatch it. But these days, I feel kind of guilty rewatching films because there's so many other great films out there that I just haven't seen yet, so I try to prioritize films that I haven't seen. But thankfully, because of my fellow Kino Lords, y'all have given me the perfect opportunity to not only rewatch this film, but bring you guys a proper review of this. So for starters, when it comes to Alejandro Jodorowsky, he's one of the few filmmakers that I can truly characterize as a true artist inside and out. I mean, to his very core of his being and his soul, this man loves art and he's a true artist, and this guy is insane. Alejandro Jodorowsky is by far one of the most boundary-pushing filmmakers that I've come to be familiar with at this point. Even if, hypothetically, I wasn't a fan of his films, which I am clearly, even if that were the case, I would have a huge amount of respect for him, just because it's such a bold and ambitious move to just go all the way with your artwork. There's a few filmmakers out there today that, have the opportunity to do that and are willing to do that. So far from Jodorowsky, I've seen El Topo, Santa Sangre, and The Holy Mountain. The Holy Mountain, obviously, most of y'all know, is one of the most batshit insane films that I've ever seen in my entire life. But it's also, again, like one of the most artful products that I've ever seen. As I mentioned, just insanely boundary-pushing stuff, but is incredibly layered and substantive and satirical in every single frame. I actually have a scene analysis on The Holy Mountain. I don't know if any of you guys knew that existed, but it's there if you guys want to check it out. But anyways, that's enough about my relationship with Alejandro Jodorowsky and Alejandro Jodorowsky himself. Now it's time to actually talk about what you clicked on this video for, which are my thoughts on Santa Sangre. Clearly, I told you guys that I love this film because I've seen it already about 4+ years ago, and after rewatching it, I love it just as much as I did before. This film is spectacular. This is a film that is obviously like on the avant-garde and, bizarre side of filmmaking. But at the same time, like in comparison to something like El Topo and The Holy Mountain, this has much more of a structured narrative to follow, but that doesn't stop it from being incredibly layered and just filled with mountains of symbolism. To me, it's quite brilliant how Jodorowsky was able to intertwine so many different themes and so many different pieces of symbolism and so many different messages that he wanted to convey through a story that's pretty simple to follow, in my opinion. Again, obviously, it's bizarre and very interpretive, but again, in comparison to some of his more out there works, this gives you more of a traditional narrative and characters to latch onto throughout your experience. And throughout this experience, what you get is something that is, on one hand, incredibly horrifying and haunting, but on the other hand is absolutely mesmerizing and beautiful. There are so many mesmerizing sequences in this film. One of the first stunningly beautiful sequences that we get in this film is the introduction to Alma's character, where you see Phoenix's character looking up at her, and you get this really slow zoom-in shot of her looking down at him as the lighting gets brighter, and to me, that's kind of the moment where I knew that I was going to truly love this film. By the way, just a quick interesting fact, young Phoenix in this film is played by Adán Jodorowsky, who is Alejandro Jodorowsky's youngest son, and then older Phoenix in this film is played by Axel Jodorowsky, who is Alejandro Jodorowsky's older son. And personally, I think it's quite great casting, because not only do they both give great performances in this film, it's hard to choose who gives a better performance, because young Phoenix in this film, Adán Jodorowsky, really great child performance in my opinion. And then, obviously Axel Jodorowsky really knocks it out of the park here. And, but yeah, not only do they give great performances, but they look incredibly similar. Like, this is like one of those films where you totally buy that is the grown-up version of that character, because they're actually related. But anyway, yeah, a lot of people characterize this film as a horror film, and that's totally fair considering the fact that there are plenty of sequences in this film that are absolutely horrific and incredibly off-putting. Especially a lot of scenes that are done in front of children. Just that alone, can, kind of put you off and make you feel uncomfortable. For those, and it's an incredibly violent film. So, for those reasons, I totally understand why people characterize it as a horror film, because in part it is, but at the same time, it's definitely more than that as well, because as I mentioned, this is, to me, like one of the most beautiful films that I've ever seen. But I mean, this film really is packed with so many different memorable scenes, and I really wish I could take the time to just go through every single scene that really stood out to me and talk about them. Maybe one of these days I'll cook up an analysis for it so I can really dive deep into this film. But yeah, this film contains so many different scenes that not only evoke an emotion and reaction out of you, but are also incredibly thought-provoking. There's a scene with a dying elephant that evokes such a deep level of melancholy. There's another scene in the beginning of this film that takes place at the Church of Holy Blood, Sangre, which is the name of the film, and that is just a brilliant scene all around that perfectly kind of exposes the hypocrisy of organized religion. And I'll probably stop there for now in terms of calling out certain scenes, because I really, for those who haven't seen it, I really want y'all to go into this and, experiencing some of these scenes without anybody giving anything away. But this entire film is just packed with so many different scenes that give you so much to chew on. And, again, as I mentioned at the beginning of this review, it's absolutely layered with so many different thematic expressions and thematic statements. And you can just tell that this film is just flowing with so many different things that Jodorowsky wants to say. And it's about so many different things. I mean, ultimately, this is a film about the fragility of childhood and how childhood trauma can deeply impact your adult life. And the film uses that as a foundation to explore a lot of themes related to that. For example, there's a gigantic emphasis on hands as a piece of symbolism in this film that, to me, is used to represent one's ability to make decisions for themselves and control their own life. In this case, for the main character, it's more of a lack of control of their own life. And of course, as I mentioned, that directly goes back to childhood trauma. But at the same time, there's another layer to that as well that's very well demonstrated through the worship of false idols. That's demonstrated through this reoccurring symbolic object in the film that is like this armless saint statuette. And to me, that was expressing how giving your life up to an authoritative figure of that magnitude, whether it be your own parents or organized religion, can really restrict one's ability to make their own decisions and have some sort of control over their life. And that's another reason why I really love the character Alma in this film, because Alma in English means soul, and the way that her character is incorporated into the story and the way that it expresses its significance revolving around the main character is poignant, and it's substantive, and it all kind of comes full circle, and is another reason why I consider this film to be beautiful. It has a lot to do with Alma's character and how she's incorporated into the mix. Another thematic statement in this film that I thought was very well expressed is the ripping of one's innocence, specifically children. And a lot of that is expressed through the correlation between sex and violence. And once those things become intertwined in a child's mind, and also in really anybody's mind, but specifically in a child's mind, because as I mentioned, childhood is an incredibly fragile period, and makes it to where you kind of rob somebody of their ability to express themselves sexually in, a loving and innocent kind of way. It also has a creative and impactful way of expressing how triggers work through a traumatic mind, in the sense that just one image of something or somebody can cause this domino effect of just bringing back so many haunted memories that you just bury deep within you. But yeah, this film, as I mentioned a billion times, is just packed with so much. I mean, there's so much here narratively, there's so much here in terms of character, in terms of symbolism and metaphors. I mean, it's filled with different pieces of symbolism sprinkled throughout the film that, have its own separate significance, but is also well incorporated into the story and characters, which is one of the reasons why this film really impresses me. But in terms of criticisms that I have with this film, as much as I love this film to death and is honestly just personally one of my favorite films ever, I do have to be honest about a few things. And they're not so serious, but one of them being, I don't quite understand why this film is in English. I mean, there is some Spanish in this film, obviously, because it takes place in Mexico City. But the vast majority of the language spoken in this film is English. But overall, I have a difficult time making sense of the decision, considering it's not very natural to the setting and location. There's probably reasons that I'm not aware about, but to me, it does come off a bit unnatural. I mean, I kind of get used to it, but it definitely is a little off-putting at first. And perhaps Jodorowsky wanted this to be an English-speaking film, for marketing purposes, which, I guess makes sense. And I do think that if this film was completely spoken in Spanish, it would have made for a better artistic creation. But again, I'm not sure. Perhaps there is something about this that I just don't know about. I would love to hear anybody's insight that they might have on this in the comment section, because I truly don't know. But another aspect of the film, and this is kind of more nitpicky, has to do with the audio editing in terms of the audio dubbing. There's a lot of moments in this film where the audio dubbing is very noticeable. Either in the sense that the audio is not even coming close to matching the lip movements, or also just because of the fact that just the way the audio sounds in terms of pitch, you can tell someone's just talking directly into a microphone. So, but when it comes to the audio editing and engineering, it's definitely not the best I've heard. And I do understand that this film was made on a pretty damn low budget, so, in that regards, I do understand the audio is not going to be perfect. But I'd be lying if I told you that it wasn't noticeable. And I remember when I watched this film for the first time, I thought that there were aspects of this film that felt a little too theatrical and over the top, to the point where it was just a little silly and it wanted me to take it seriously. But the second time around, I didn't really quite feel that way. I kind of just embraced the approach it was going for, and I was able to really get immersed in pretty much everything. So that's not necessarily a criticism that I hold anymore upon rewatch. But anyways, obviously, this is a film that I absolutely adore. For a while, I thought The Holy Mountain was clearly the winner for my favorite Jodorowsky film. But at this point, I really don't know. I juggle between Santa Sangre and Holy Mountain. So I'm going to give Santa Sangre a soft 9 out of 10. This really is one of those films that I could talk about all day, every day. After talking about it, I'm really considering coming out with an analysis for it. And I actually feel like this might be one of those films that I could actually deconstruct scene by scene the entire film. The last time I did a full film deconstruction was, I think, Moonlight, which was like 4 or 5 years ago, so I don't really do that anymore because it's a shitload of work. But I would love to somehow find the time to do that for this film, because, again, it's packed with so much shit, and I just want to have the opportunity and chance to discuss every single bit of it. But anyways, that's all I got to say about Santa Sangre. If you really enjoyed what I had to say about the film, please give it a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.